There is now in this country a cancer. It is now growing on every single intelligence agency that we once respected in this country. We're now at a tipping point. As a result of all of the corruption, it's taken a long time, that we have exposed on this show, including all week this week, at the highest levels, corruption in the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, and tonight yet again we have brand new, just unearthed text messages between Strzok and Page. By the way, I hear there's more coming next week, which show even more leaking to the press of nothing but dossier, phony lies and misinformation. We've been reporting all week that Strzok and Page, that they've been doing this, and we have the text messages to prove it. By the way, CNN got late into the game tonight. Welcome aboard. You're only a year and a half too late. And they actually uncovered the text we've been telling you about all week. Welcome to actual journalism for 5 seconds, fake news CNN. Look at this text from Lisa Page to Peter Strzok, the date December 2016. At that point, President-elect Trump, both Trump haters, they wrote, quote, "It will make your head spin to realize how many stories we played a personal role in." Next up, text, January 2017. It's even more damning. Sitting with Bill watching fake news CNN. I added that part. A ton more out. Hey, let me know when you can talk. We're discussing whether now that this is out, we use it as a pretext to go interview some people. So what you see here is an obvious effort from Strzok and Page not only to leak information, then use that leak information to justify further investigations and intimidation of other people. Exactly what we've been telling you for over a year, and there's more. Look at this text. It's April 27th, 2017. It shows even more damning evidence of leaking. Well, it's going to be very apparent we cooperated and gave access a lot for that article that I think is going to be very negative. Add all of this to what we have been reporting for a year and earlier this week, where Strzok and Page were texting about their media leak strategy. They were also working together on a Russian interference op-ed in the lead-up to the 2016 election. We also learned, thanks to Catherine Herridge, the FBI's sisters in the CIA that were, quote, leaking like mad after the election, that were on a vendetta. Well, that was the CIA, of course. Leaking to the press, lying to numerous FISA court judges, colluding with a foreign spy with deep Russian ties, propagating Russian lies. This is real. This is serious. These are crimes. By the way, if this special counsel won't investigate it, we need a special counsel that will. If Mueller's inquiry wraps up without addressing any of this, well, here's what Lindsey Graham had to say about this very topic. Take a look.
What I wish Jeff would talk about, I wish some of my colleagues would talk more about, is what's going on in the Department of Justice and the FBI. I'm going to send a letter today to Rosenstein. These new text messages from Strzok and Page about leaking information about the FISA warrant process to the media is just one in a series of events that scream for special counsel. How much more has to be uncovered at the Department of Justice regarding a political agenda? The Department of Justice and the FBI were political operatives when it came to Trump. They weren't investigators. And this screams for a special counsel. So I agree with Jeff. You shouldn't beat on Sessions personally. But I don't know why Rosenstein, who's in charge of this process, doesn't see what I see, an out-of-control Department of Justice and FBI. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Let's have a DOJ investigated by somebody outside the Department of Justice.
So tonight, what he's saying and what we're saying is the same. The integrity of some of the greatest institutions in American history, our FBI, our Intelligence Committee, the Department of Justice, our CIA, if we can't trust them, if we don't resolve this abuse of power, if people aren't held accountable, we will lose this constitutional republic. That's how serious this is. Sarah, this is now 5 straight days in a row, and I'm told more Strzok Page messages. There's over 50,000 of them are coming out next week that are even more damning than the reveals about the media leak strategy and everything else. Here's my question. Am I right that tonight the institutions that are so great in the minds of most Americans, including my own, the FBI, the Department of Justice, the CIA, the intel community, Are they hanging in the balance based on the abuse of power of some at the highest level that now we have incontrovertible evidence about?
Sean, I've spoken to a number of former very high-level intelligence officials and current law enforcement officials, and they say that's absolutely the case. This is hanging in the balance because all of this evidence, this isn't just circumstantial anymore. We're actually seeing the facts on its face point to one thing and one thing only, that this was a deception operation from the very beginning. And let me explain that a little bit. A deception operation is what CIA is trained to do overseas. It's what the Russians do to other countries. But instead, it appears that the FBI and possibly members of the CIA were doing it right here in the United States to their own government. So there needs to be a special counsel. They said there needs to be a thorough investigation. Lindsey Graham is right. There needs to be somebody outside of the DOJ to investigate this, because the one thing we can't have happen in our country is have our own agencies that we entrust ourselves to, our lives to, actually working covertly against their own government and against the people of the United States.
Greg, and this is the whole premise of your book. The illicit scheme to elect Hillary Clinton, destroy Donald Trump. This is what it's all about.
That's right.
But who are the people destroying? We got the highest levels. We've got Strzok, we've got Page, we've got Comey, we've got McCabe, we've got Orr, we've got Sally Yates, we've got all these people. They all have one thing in common. They hate Trump. And it goes right into the special counsel's office himself, because Steele texting Bruce Orr, oh, did you get my information over to the special counsel, your contacts there? So it's the institutions of law enforcement, the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, the intel community, and the special counsel's office. How can anybody in this country have faith in the rule of law now that all of these institutions have been tainted, not by rank and file, but by the highest people with the most power?
You're correct that there was a cancer in our government. It's still there. It became malignant under Obama's Department of Justice and James Comey's FBI, John Brennan's CIA, James Clapper's DNI. And it's still going on. Just look at the text messages that we received today. Strzok and Page are obsessed and transfixed with their quote-unquote personal role in leaking and shaping stories. And then they're bragging that now we can use this as a pretext to interview people. It's not only mendacious and devious, but to the extent they were leaking highly classified information, and they surely were, it is a crime. I'm no fan of a special counsel, but if you have a special counsel for Trump, you got to have a special counsel for the investigators who are breaking the law with impunity.
I've got to believe somewhere in the office, in the mind of Robert Mueller, somewhere there's got to be some sense of truth in all of this, and that all of this evidence, all of this abuse of power, he's got to understand at some point that all of these agencies now will be permanently, if not irreparably, damaged in all of this. Sarah.
Yes, and the one thing that he needs to do, and you know, we've spoken to a number of lawmakers who have said the same thing, he needs to wrap up this special counsel investigation, which was based off of false, unverified information. Look, all of this was a pretext, Sean. They built a narrative, and then they tried to support that narrative. When I tell you this is a deception operation, that means they thought about this from the beginning. They were going to try to find a way to try to connect President Trump to Russia, even if it was based on false information. They leaked that to the media.
The irony, though, is Hillary was the connection. Hillary paid for the Russian lies that got everybody in trouble because they all wanted to protect her.
These people loved Hillary Clinton. They hated Donald Trump. He was a threat to their positions of power. So they went about conjuring, based on false evidence, a hoax to frame him. And I detail it in my book, but every day new evidence comes out that corroborates the Russia hoax.
I believe tonight hanging in the balance is the credibility of some of the greatest institutions we have. You work with them as a Florida Attorney General. I don't like talking badly about the FBI, the CIA, the intel community in this country, or the Director of National Intelligence, but we all know now beyond any doubt that there was, at the highest levels, not rank and file, abuse of power and corruption and law breaking and spreading of lies and leaking lies at every level. How do we fix this at this point?
Well, Sean, hopefully it's being fixed with the grand jury being impaneled. And you've been saying this all along from day one. And what the American people have to remember, we are a nation of laws, and no one is above the law, especially the highest levels of the FBI. And there are thousands of great men and women of the FBI who are out there working tirelessly every day. And I know many of them are disgusted by the reputation that's happening to the FBI because of an elite few.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you see these text messages. You see what they were doing before and after the election. And at the heart of it all is Clinton corruption and her Russian bought and paid for lies. And it even seeps right into Robert Mueller's office vis-a-vis Christopher Steele and, of course, his conduit, Bruce Orr.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a water's edge on political disagreements, right? We're seeing this with the Supreme Court. We're seeing this with what happened at the very top echelon of the FBI. It doesn't seem to be that as a country we can just have political disagreements. You have to do things, the left has to do things like try to corrupt the greatest law enforcement institution the world has ever known, the FBI. 99.9% of the people working there are wonderful, talented patriots. And what they did was repugnant. And you know what, Sean, I think what I hear most when I go around the country is they always say, how come nobody's in jail? This is the worst corruption, political corruption we've ever seen.
Abuse of power ever. And Robert Mueller is not doing anything about it. He was the former FBI director. He needs to fix it and clean up the mess, get out the bad actors, and save these great institutions with great people that do work in them.
Tonight, more explosive text just released between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and it includes this exchange. Check it out from December 19th, 2016, right after the election. Strzok texts Page the following. It will make your head spin to realize how many stories we played a personal role in. Page responds, sheesh, this has been quite a year, and forwards a link to the New York Times most read stories of 2016. Kendall, what does this tell you about the paramour's involvement with the media in setting a narrative against Trump and his associates?
Yeah, it's deeper and worse than we thought. We already thought it was pretty bad. They talked about stopping the Trump candidacy. Now they're orchestrating a media campaign. And by the way, throwing some things in there, how they're going to maybe set up some pretexts for interviews, coordinating ongoing leaks, obviously aimed at the Trump administration. So this is a serious thing. And what's going to be difficult is trying to understand and nail down how much influence did they have on others who were involved. They were high-ranking people. They were involved at critical periods during all of this. But where does the influence end, and how do we diagnose just how much of a taint there is on this?
Yeah. And Lindsey Graham, of course, has called for a second special counsel, Joe DeGenova. Jeff Sessions, God bless him, Rod Rosenstein, this is screaming investigation. We have the Inspector General investigation ongoing, but this needs a Justice Department regular process investigation or a special counsel. This is ridiculous. Setting up a pretext for interviews of Trump officials based on leaks that they planted in the media. So it's like this feedback loop in order to get the Trump folks. This is they call Trump an autocrat? This is maddening.
As I've been saying for 2 years, there was a brazen plot to illegally exonerate Hillary Clinton in the email case, and then if she lost, to frame Donald Trump. And that is exactly what these texts are about. Whether or not Mr. Strzok and Lisa Page and others are indicted is certainly a question people can debate. But let me just say, I know that there is a grand jury underway. Testimony is being taken about Strzok, Page, McCabe, and others involved in this case. And the reason we know it is that James Baker, the former general counsel of the FBI, has turned state's evidence and is fully cooperating with the Inspector General and with the federal grand jury. I can assure you, Mr. Comey has been very silent in recent weeks, and the reason is very simple. He knows he's going to be indicted.
Wow, pretty explosive on a Friday night.